How did my own daughter and her husband go from laughing at me in the family chat to pounding at my door, desperate and red-faced, as I filmed their apologies for the world to see? When your family treats you like a joke, sometimes the only answer is to show just how much they depended on the boring old man they pushed aside. This is how canceling a few payments and pressing record changed everything for them, and for me. The December snow was falling softly outside my suburban home when I picked up my phone to check the family group chat. At 62, I'd grown accustomed to the quiet rhythm of retirement, but the holidays always brought a familiar hope that maybe this year would be different. Maybe this year, my daughter Alyssa would appreciate the man who'd spent decades ensuring she never wanted for anything. I scrolled through the messages, watching my family coordinate Christmas plans without much input from me. My ex-wife Eleanor had suggested we all meet at the community center like old times, and my son Mason had chimed in from his new job in Portland, saying he'd try to make it work with his flight schedule. Then I saw Alyssa's typing indicator appear. "Don't you dare come for Christmas, we don't want to see you." The words hit me like a physical blow, but what came next was worse. Trevor, my son-in-law, immediately reacted with a laughing emoji, then another. Then Eleanor added a crying, laughing face. Even Mason, my usually level-headed son, dropped a simple, before the conversation moved on to discussing what appetizers to bring. I stared at my phone screen, watching my family laugh at my exclusion from their holiday celebration. The casual cruelty of it struck deeper than any argument we'd ever had. This wasn't anger, this was dismissal. This was them treating me like a punchline. My phone buzzed with a series of notifications from my banking app. Automatic payments processing, $200 for Alyssa and Trevor's rent, $340 for Trevor's car payment, $180 for their car insurance, $95 for Alyssa's phone plan, $67 for their streaming services. The list went on, a steady stream of financial support that had become so routine I barely noticed it anymore. But today, I noticed everything. I walked to my home office and opened the metal filing cabinet where I kept what I called my family support agreements. Meticulously organized folders containing every receipt, every bank transfer, every loan agreement I'd made with my children over the years. The folder labeled Alyssa and Trevor was the thickest by far. As I flipped through the documents, my phone buzzed again. Another message in the family chat, this time from Trevor. Maybe Frank can pay for a nice retirement home instead. More laughing emojis followed. I closed the folder, walked back to my living room, and sat in my leather recliner, the one Alyssa always complained was too old-fashioned for family photos. Outside, I could see my neighbor Derek shoveling his driveway, probably wondering why I hadn't started on mine yet. Derek Foster had been my friend since we'd both moved to this neighborhood 15 years ago. He'd watched me navigate my divorce, celebrate my children's graduations, and quietly support their endless financial needs. My phone buzzed one more time. Alyssa had sent a private message. "Dad, just so you know, we're having people over tonight and need the apartment to look nice. Can you Venmo me $300 for decorations and food? Trevor's commission check is delayed again." The audacity was breathtaking. In the span of 20 minutes, she'd publicly humiliated me and then privately asked for money. I looked at the message for a long time, then closed my phone without responding. That night, I sat in my office until well past midnight, reading through years of financial records, bank statements showing thousands of dollars in transfers, insurance policies I'd maintained in their names, lease agreements where I'd served as guarantor, car titles with my name as co-signer, wedding expenses that had maxed out my credit cards, emergency loans that were never repaid. The pattern was clear. I wasn't their father anymore. I was their ATM. The morning brought clarity and memories I'd been trying to avoid. As I made coffee in my empty kitchen, I remembered the day 20-year-old Alyssa had called me sobbing because she'd maxed out her credit cards during her junior year of college. I'd driven 4 hours to her campus, paid off the $3,400 debt, and helped her create a budget. She'd hugged me tight and promised to be more responsible. That was the first bailout of many. After college, there was the security deposit for her first apartment, $2,800 because her credit wasn't good enough for the standard rate. Then the car loan co-signature when she wanted something more professional for her marketing job. The emergency room bill when she broke her wrist snowboarding. The bridesmaid dress expenses for 3 different weddings. Each time I'd stepped in without hesitation because that's what fathers do. Then Trevor entered the picture. I'd met him at Alyssa's 28th birthday party, a confident real estate agent with a firm handshake and big plans. He'd impressed everyone with his stories about million-dollar listings and celebrity clients, though I later learned he was mostly showing starter homes to first-time buyers. Still, Alyssa was happy, and that mattered to me. The wedding planning began immediately, and so did the expenses. The venue Alyssa wanted was $15,000 over their budget. The photographer was another $3,000. Trevor's bachelor party in Vegas required a last-minute loan when his credit card was declined. By the time they said, "I do," I'd contributed over $30,000 to their dream wedding. "Don't worry, Mr. Dietrich," Trevor had said during the rehearsal dinner, his arm around my shoulders. "Once my real estate career takes off, we'll pay you back with interest. You're investing in our future." That was 4 years ago. The payback never materialized, but the requests for help multiplied. Their apartment lease required a guarantor with excellent credit, me. Their car insurance was cheaper if added to my family plan. Trevor's real estate license renewal fees, Alyssa's professional development courses, their anniversary trip to Cabo, when Trevor's big commission fell through again. Each request came with elaborate explanations and promises of repayment that never materialized. My son Mason had been different. He'd worked through college, lived frugally, and only asked for help with genuinely unexpected emergencies. When he graduated with his computer science degree, he'd insisted on paying me back for every loan, even the small ones. Now he lived in Portland, building a successful career and maintaining respectful distance from the family drama. "Dad, you know Alyssa takes advantage of you, right?" Mason had asked during his last visit. "Trevor's been bragging on social media about their lifestyle, but I know they're not making that kind of money." I'd brushed off his concerns then. Family was family, and I had the means to help. But sitting in my office now, reviewing bank statements that showed over $80,000 in loans and support payments over the past 5 years, Mason's words echoed differently. The breaking point had been building for months. The casual disrespect had grown more obvious at family gatherings. Trevor would joke about my boomer technology habits while using the phone I paid for. Alyssa would roll her eyes when I offered advice, then text me for money the next day. Eleanor, my ex-wife, would shrug it off with comments like, "They're young," or, "You know how kids are these days." But they weren't kids anymore. Alyssa was 32 with a master's degree and a full-time job. Trevor was 34 and claimed to be a successful real estate agent. Yet they lived like teenagers with an unlimited allowance, funded by the man they mocked in group chats. I opened my laptop and created a new spreadsheet titled Family Disbursements. Row by row, I entered every payment, every loan, every bailout from the past 5 years. The total was staggering. $127,000 in direct financial support, not counting the ongoing monthly payments for rent, insurance, and utilities. As I worked, my phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "Saw the news about the Hendersons moving. Coffee later? You seem like you could use someone to talk to." Derek had always been perceptive. He'd been a family law attorney before retirement and had watched my divorce proceedings with a professional eye. He'd also witnessed years of Alyssa and Trevor's entitled behavior during neighborhood gatherings. "How does Frank afford to support 2 households?" I'd overheard Mrs. Harrington ask Derek's wife, Linda, at a block party last summer. "Those kids of his sure have expensive tastes for people their age." The gossip stung because it was true. My neighbors could see what I'd been blind to. I was being used. That afternoon, I met Derek at our usual coffee shop downtown. He took one look at my face and ordered us both double shots. "What's eating you, Frank?" I showed him the family group chat messages. Derek read them twice, his expression darkening. "Jesus Christ, Frank. This is how they talk to you?" "It gets worse." I pulled up the financial spreadsheet on my phone. "This is what I've been paying for the privilege of their company." Derek whistled low. "That's a down payment on a house. Hell, that's a house in some markets." "They think it's funny? The whole family was laughing at me getting uninvited from Christmas." "What are you going to do about it?" I looked out the coffee shop window at the busy downtown street, watching people hurry past with their holiday shopping bags and purpose-filled strides. Everyone seemed to know where they belonged except me. "I'm not sure yet, but I'm done being the family joke." Derek leaned forward, his lawyer instincts kicking in. "Frank, you know you have more power in this situation than they realize, right? You've been documenting everything. You're the guarantor on their lease, and you're funding their entire lifestyle. They're not laughing because they're in control. They're laughing because they have no idea how dependent they are on you." That night, I sat in my home office with a glass of bourbon Derek had left me, staring at my computer screen. My banking app was open, showing the list of scheduled automatic payments set to process over the next week. Rent, car payment, insurance, utilities, phone bills, the infrastructure of Alyssa and Trevor's comfortable life. My finger hovered over the cancel payment button for their rent. One click would stop the automatic transfer that had been running for 3 years. One click would make their landlord's problem their problem. But I wasn't ready yet. Not tonight. Instead, I opened a new document and began typing a detailed timeline of every financial interaction I'd had with Alyssa and Trevor, every loan, every bailout, every broken promise to pay me back. If this was going to end, it was going to end with documentation. The next morning brought a voicemail from Alyssa that made my decision easier. "Dad, it's me. Look, about yesterday, Trevor was just joking around. You know how he is. Anyway, we really need that $300 I texted about, plus maybe another $200 for Trevor's car registration that's due tomorrow. His big listing is supposed to close next week, so we'll totally pay you back then. Love you." The casual dismissal of my humiliation as Trevor just joking around was the final insult. No apology, no acknowledgement that their group chat mockery had hurt me. Just an expectation that I'd continue funding their lifestyle regardless of how they treated me. I called Derek. "I need that legal advice now." An hour later, I was sitting in Derek's living room while Linda brought us coffee and discreetly disappeared upstairs. Derek had pulled out a legal pad and was taking notes as I explained the full scope of my financial entanglement with Alyssa and Trevor. "The good news is that most of these payments are voluntary," Derek said, reviewing my documentation. "You're not legally obligated to continue supporting them. The rent payments, insurance, phone bills, you can cancel those anytime." "What about the lease? I'm the guarantor." "That's trickier, but not impossible. You'd need to give proper notice and work with the landlord. But Frank, here's the thing. They probably don't even realize how precarious their situation is. They've been living on your dime for so long, they think it's permanent." Derek leaned back in his chair, studying me. "The question is, what do you want to accomplish? Do you want them to apologize and change their behavior? Or do you want them to understand the consequences of treating you like garbage?" "I want them to understand that I'm not their personal ATM. I want them to realize that respect isn't optional just because we're family." "Then you need to be strategic. Don't just cut them off. Show them exactly how dependent they've become. Make it impossible for them to ignore what you've been providing." That afternoon, I returned home and opened my laptop. Derek's advice echoed in my mind as I navigated to my banking app and began reviewing every automatic payment scheduled for the next month. Rent, $200, car payment, $340, car insurance, $180, renter's insurance, $45, phone plan, $95, utilities, $230, streaming services, $67, nearly $2,100 per month in automatic payments, not counting the emergency requests that seemed to arrive weekly. I opened a new folder on my desktop labeled Documentation and began taking screenshots. Every payment confirmation, every text message requesting money, every broken promise to pay me back. If Alyssa and Trevor wanted to treat this like a game, I was going to play by different rules. My phone buzzed with another text from Trevor. "Hey Frank, Alyssa said she talked to you about the car registration money. Can you Venmo it today? The DMV is closed tomorrow and I need to drive for work. Thanks, man." The casual presumption in his message was infuriating. No, please, no acknowledgement of the group chat humiliation, just an expectation that I'd comply immediately. I screenshotted the message and added it to my documentation folder. Instead of responding to Trevor, I called my insurance company. "I'd like to remove 2 vehicles from my family plan," I told the representative. "Yes, I understand there might be a gap in coverage for the other drivers. That's their responsibility to handle." Next, I called my phone carrier and removed Alyssa's line from my family plan. Then I logged into my banking app and began the process of canceling automatic payments. Not all of them. Not yet. I wanted to be strategic about this. I started with the non-essential services, streaming subscriptions, gym memberships, the premium insurance coverage that was above the basic requirement. Small things that would be noticed but wouldn't immediately create a crisis. As I worked, I thought about Trevor's behavior at family gatherings, the way he dominated conversations with exaggerated stories about his real estate success, how he'd casually mention expensive purchases while sitting in my house, eating food I'd provided, after arriving in a car I was helping to pay for. Last Thanksgiving, he'd actually bragged to my neighbors about their investment portfolio and diversified income streams. Derek had raised an eyebrow at me across the table, clearly thinking what I was too polite to say. Trevor's biggest income stream was me. I opened my email and began drafting a message to my accountant. If I was going to stop supporting Alyssa and Trevor, I needed to understand the tax implications of the money I'd been providing. Were these gifts? Loans? How much could I potentially recover if I treated them as legitimate debts? The numbers were sobering. Beyond the $127,000 in direct support, I was providing nearly $26,000 per year in ongoing monthly payments. Over the past 5 years, my total investment in Alyssa and Trevor's lifestyle exceeded $150,000. For context, that was more than I'd spent on my own living expenses during the same period. As evening approached, I received a panicked text from Alyssa. "Dad, something's wrong with Netflix. It says our account was canceled, and Trevor's gym called about a payment issue. Can you check your credit card? Maybe it expired?" I smiled grimly. They'd noticed the small changes but hadn't yet connected them to their group chat behavior. They still assumed this was a technical error, not a deliberate action. I didn't respond to the text. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened the family group chat to reread their mocking messages from the day before. The laughing emojis looked different now, less hurtful and more naive. They had no idea what was coming. My phone rang. Eleanor, my ex-wife. "Frank, Alyssa called me about some payment issues. She thinks your credit card might have been compromised. Should I give her your new number to call the bank?" "My credit card is fine, Eleanor." "Then what's going on? She's really worried." I could hear the genuine concern in Eleanor's voice, but also the familiar pattern of enabling. Eleanor had always been the peacekeeper in our family, smoothing over conflicts and encouraging everyone to just get along. It had been one of the sources of tension in our marriage, my feeling that she never held the children accountable for their behavior. "What's going on is that I'm tired of being treated like a joke by my own family. Did you see the group chat yesterday?" A pause. "Frank, they were just being silly. You know how they are." "No, Eleanor. I know how I've allowed them to be. That's going to change." After I hung up, I sat in my quiet house and realized how peaceful it felt. No unexpected visitors dropping by to ask for money. No guilt about not doing enough for my adult children. no wondering when the next financial emergency would arise. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of my own life. The next morning, I woke with the clarity that comes from finally making a difficult decision. I'd spent years enabling behavior that had grown progressively worse, and yesterday's group chat mockery was simply the inevitable result of that enabling. I made coffee and opened my laptop to continue documenting everything. Derek had emphasized the importance of having a clear paper trail, not for legal reasons, but for my own peace of mind. If I was going to change the dynamic with Alyssa and Trevor, I needed to be absolutely certain of the facts. At 9 a.m., I called my bank and spoke with Patricia, the personal banker who'd helped me set up most of the automatic transfers to Alyssa and Trevor over the years. Mr. Dietrich, I see you've already made some changes to your automatic payment schedule. Is there anything else I can help you with today? I need to cancel several more recurring transfers, and I'd like a detailed statement showing all payments made to specific recipients over the past 5 years. Patricia was professional and efficient, asking only the necessary questions. Within an hour, I had confirmation that all automatic payments to Alyssa and Trevor would stop after the current billing cycle. Their rent payment, scheduled for the first of the month, would be the last. I drove to the coffee shop where Derek and I had met the day before. He was already there, reading the newspaper with his usual methodical attention to detail. How are you feeling about this, Frank? Strangely calm. I thought I'd be more emotional, but mostly I feel relieved. Derek nodded. That's normal. You've been carrying a burden for years, and you're finally setting it down. The question is, are you prepared for their reaction? I showed him my phone, which had received 6 text messages from Alyssa and Trevor since the previous evening. The messages had escalated from confusion about the canceled services to frustration to barely concealed panic. They're starting to realize this isn't a mistake, I said. Good. But Frank, you need to be prepared for them to escalate too. When people are used to getting their way through manipulation, they don't give up easily. They'll try guilt, anger, promises to change, whatever they think will work. Derek was right. By noon, my phone was buzzing constantly. Alyssa had called 4 times, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails. Trevor had sent a series of texts ranging from casual, "Hey, can you call me when you get a chance?" to demanding, "We need to talk today about these payment issues." I turned off my phone and spent the afternoon organizing my documentation. Every bank statement, every text message, every email request for money was sorted chronologically and saved in multiple formats. I created a simple spreadsheet showing the total amount I'd provided each year, with a running balance of unpaid loans. The pattern was stark when laid out visually. The requests for money had increased each year, while the promised repayments had never materialized. What had started as occasional help with genuine emergencies had evolved into systematic funding of a lifestyle they couldn't afford. Around 3 p.m., I heard a car pull into my driveway. Through the window, I saw Trevor's BMW, the one with payments I'd been covering for 2 years. He sat in the driver's seat for several minutes, apparently on the phone, before getting out and walking to my front door. I didn't answer the doorbell. Trevor knocked several times, then called out, "Frank, I know you're home. We need to talk about this payment stuff. There's obviously been some kind of mistake." I watched from my living room window as he walked around to the backyard, trying to peer through windows. The entitlement was breathtaking. Even when asking for my help, he was treating my home like his own property. After 10 minutes, Trevor returned to his car and drove away. My phone, which I'd turned back on, immediately buzzed with a text. "Stopped by, but you weren't home. Call me ASAP. This payment thing is becoming a real problem." The fact that he'd lied about me not being home told me everything I needed to know about how he'd handle the larger conversation. That evening, Eleanor called again. "Frank, the kids are really upset. They think you're angry about something, but they don't know what. Can't you just talk to them?" I'm not angry, Eleanor. I'm done. There's a difference. Done with what? They're your family. Family doesn't publicly mock each other for entertainment. Family doesn't treat each other like ATMs. And family doesn't lie about stopping by to talk when they're really just demanding money. I could hear Eleanor sigh. You're being dramatic. So they made some jokes in the group chat. You know they don't mean anything by it. The jokes aren't the problem, Eleanor. The jokes are just the symptom. The problem is that I've been enabling disrespectful behavior for years, and it's gotten worse because I never set boundaries. After hanging up, I sat in my office and drafted an email to my accountant, explaining the situation and asking about the tax implications of treating the money I'd given Alyssa and Trevor as loans rather than gifts. If they wanted to play hardball, I was prepared to explore all my options. I also drafted a second email, this one to my attorney, asking about the process for removing myself as guarantor from Alyssa and Trevor's lease. Derek had mentioned it was possible with proper notice, and I wanted to understand the timeline. As I prepared for bed, I checked my phone one last time. 12 missed calls from Alyssa, 8 from Trevor, and 3 from Eleanor. The voicemails had evolved from confused to frustrated to desperate. The last message, from Trevor, was the most revealing. Frank, I don't know what game you're playing, but this needs to stop. We have bills due, and you're putting us in a really bad position. Call me back tonight or I'm coming over tomorrow morning. The threat was implicit, but clear. Trevor was accustomed to getting his way through intimidation, and he assumed it would work with me too. He was about to learn otherwise. Christmas Eve morning arrived gray and cold, matching my mood as I prepared for what I knew would be a confrontation. I'd slept better than I had in months, despite, or perhaps because of, the 23 unread messages on my phone. I made coffee and reviewed my documentation one final time. Everything was organized, backed up, and ready. Bank statements showing $150,000 in support over 5 years. Screenshots of every mocking message from the family group chat. Text messages showing Trevor's escalating demands and threats. At 8 a.m., Derek knocked on my door. Thought you might want some company today, he said, carrying a bag from the hardware store. Also brought you something. Inside the bag was a small security camera designed for front porches. Linda's idea, Derek explained. She thinks you should document whatever happens next. We spent an hour setting up the camera, positioning it to capture clear audio and video of anyone approaching my front door. Derek also helped me test the recording function on my phone and showed me how to live stream to social media if needed. Frank, are you sure you want to go this far? Once you post something online, you can't take it back. I thought about the laughing emojis in the family group chat, the casual cruelty of being uninvited from Christmas, the years of broken promises and entitled demands. They made our family business public when they mocked me in that group chat. If they want to apologize publicly, I'll consider making this private again. Derek nodded grimly. Just remember, you're not trying to destroy them. You're trying to establish boundaries. Don't let anger make you do something you'll regret. After Derek left, I spent the morning preparing legal notices for Alyssa and Trevor. Derek had helped me draft a formal letter requesting removal as guarantor on their lease, with copies to their landlord. I also prepared a detailed accounting of all money I'd provided over the years, formatted as a loan repayment schedule with reasonable terms. If they wanted to rebuild our relationship, they could start by acknowledging the financial reality of their situation. My phone rang constantly throughout the morning. I'd stopped answering calls from Alyssa, Trevor, and Eleanor, but I did take a call from Mason in Portland. Dad, what's going on? Alyssa called me crying about some payment issues and Mom says you're having some kind of breakdown. I explained the situation calmly, reading him the group chat messages that had started everything. Mason was quiet for a long time. Jesus, Dad, I had no idea they were talking to you like that. It's been building for a while. The money was bad enough, but the disrespect is what finally got to me. Good for you, Mason said firmly. I've been watching them take advantage of you for years. Maybe this will finally wake them up. Maybe. Or maybe it will show me who they really are. Around noon, I noticed a car parked across the street from my house. Trevor's BMW, with him sitting inside talking on his phone. He'd been there for 20 minutes, apparently working up the courage to approach my door. I checked my porch camera and made sure my phone was fully charged. At 12:30, Trevor finally got out of his car and walked up my driveway. Instead of knocking, he pressed his face against my living room window, trying to see inside. When that didn't work, he began pounding on the front door. "Frank, open the door! We need to talk right now!" I watched through the camera feed as Trevor's frustration mounted. He kicked my porch railing, then pulled out his phone to make a call. Within minutes, Alyssa's car pulled up behind his. Alyssa emerged from her car, looking disheveled and angry. She marched up to my door and began her own assault on the doorbell. "Dad, this is ridiculous. Open the door." I remained in my living room, phone recording, watching my adult daughter throw a tantrum on my front porch like a toddler denied candy at the grocery store. "He's in there," Trevor told her. "I saw him through the window earlier." "Then why isn't he answering?" "Because he's being deliberately difficult," Trevor said, apparently forgetting that sound carries clearly in the winter air. I smiled grimly and kept recording. For the next hour, Alyssa and Trevor took turns knocking, calling my phone, and having increasingly loud conversations on my front porch. Several neighbors had noticed the commotion and were watching from their windows. Mrs. Harrington from next door eventually came outside to collect her mail, clearly hoping to eavesdrop. Mr. Rellin across the street was less subtle, standing in his driveway with his arms crossed, openly staring at the drama unfolding at my house. "This is so embarrassing," Alyssa hissed at Trevor. "The whole neighborhood is watching." "Then maybe your dad should stop being childish and open the door," Trevor replied. The irony was lost on both of them. At 2 p.m., Eleanor's car joined the growing collection in my driveway. My ex-wife looked harried and frustrated as she approached Alyssa and Trevor. "Any luck?" "He's being completely unreasonable," Alyssa said. "He won't even talk to us." Eleanor knocked on my door with the authoritative rhythm she'd perfected during our marriage. "Franklin Dietrich, open this door right now." "This is ridiculous." I almost smiled at her use of my full name, a tactic that had worked when we were married and I was actually doing something wrong. Today, it just sounded desperate. The three of them huddled on my porch, their voices carrying clearly to my living room and, more importantly, to my recording devices. "Maybe we should call the police," Trevor suggested. "Do a welfare check or something." "And tell them what?" Eleanor asked. "That he's not answering his door. That's not illegal." "It is if he's having a mental breakdown," Trevor insisted. "This whole thing is absurd. He's acting like we did something awful." "We didn't do anything," Alyssa agreed. "A few jokes in the group chat, and he's acting like we committed some unforgivable act." I saved the recording and started a new one. Their complete lack of self-awareness was stunning, but it was also exactly the evidence I needed. As the afternoon wore on, their conversations became more desperate and more revealing. Trevor admitted he had no idea how to pay their rent without my help. Alyssa confessed she'd already maxed out her credit cards buying Christmas presents, assuming I'd cover the payments as usual. Eleanor tried to play mediator, but her suggestions all involved me compromising and being the bigger person, the same dynamic that had enabled this situation for years. By 5 p.m., the temperature was dropping and my front porch visitors were getting cold. Trevor had made several phone calls, apparently trying to find alternative sources of money. Alyssa had called in sick to work, claiming a family emergency. "This is insane," Trevor said, his voice tight with frustration. "We need to figure out how to pay rent by Monday or we're screwed." "Can't you ask your parents?" Eleanor suggested. "My parents think Alyssa and I are financially independent," Trevor admitted. "They don't know Frank's been helping us." Another interesting revelation for my recording. As darkness fell, I prepared for the final phase of my plan. I'd given them multiple opportunities to reflect on their behavior, to show some recognition of how they'd treated me. Instead, they'd spent hours on my porch complaining about my unreasonableness and planning ways to force me to resume funding their lifestyle. I opened my laptop and began drafting a post for social media. The video I was about to record would tell the whole story, but I wanted to provide context for anyone who might see it. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. "How are you holding up? Linda saw the crowd at your house." "Almost finished," I replied. "Thanks for the camera suggestion. Remember what we talked about: boundaries, not destruction." I looked out at my front porch, where 3 adults were planning their next move in what they still saw as a game. They had no idea that the game was already over. Tomorrow was Christmas Day, and I was about to give them a gift they'd never forget. Christmas morning arrived with the soft light of fresh snow, and I woke to the sound of car doors slamming in my driveway. Through my bedroom window, I could see all 3 cars had returned: Alyssa's sedan, Trevor's BMW, and Eleanor's SUV. They'd apparently coordinated their final assault. I made coffee and checked my porch camera feed. Alyssa was pacing in my driveway, talking rapidly on her phone while Trevor leaned against his car, scrolling through what looked like banking apps. Eleanor sat in her SUV, probably gathering courage for another round of mediation. At exactly 8 a.m., they approached my front door together. This time, there was no tentative knocking. "Dad!" Alyssa shouted, pounding on the door with both fists. "Open this door right now!" I positioned myself in my living room with my phone ready to record, the porch camera capturing everything from outside while I documented from within. "Franklin, this has gone far enough," Eleanor called out. "It's Christmas morning, for God's sake. Whatever's wrong, we can work it out like adults." Trevor stepped closer to the door, his voice carrying the edge of desperation I'd been waiting for. "Frank, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but it stops now. We have bills due Monday and you're putting us in an impossible position." "It was just a prank," Alyssa screamed. "The group chat thing was just a stupid prank. We didn't mean it." I started recording on my phone and opened the front door, but left the screen door locked between us. The sudden appearance caught all 3 of them off guard. "A prank?" I said calmly, my phone clearly visible in my hand. "Publicly humiliating me and uninviting me from Christmas was a prank?" "Yes," Alyssa said desperately. "We were just joking around. You know we didn't mean it." "And the laughing emojis? Were those a prank too?" Trevor stepped forward aggressively. "Come on, Frank. Stop being so sensitive. We were just having fun." "Fun," I repeated, making sure my phone captured his dismissive tone. "Tell me, Trevor, what part was supposed to be funny? The part where you mocked me in front of my family, or the part where you expected me to keep paying your bills afterward?" "That's not... we weren't..." Trevor stammered, realizing his mistake. "You weren't what? You weren't expecting me to pay your rent on Monday? Your car payment, your insurance? Because according to my records, I've been paying those bills for years while you've been having fun at my expense." Eleanor tried to step between us. "Frank, please, they're sorry. Can't we just..." "Are they sorry?" I interrupted, keeping my phone steady. "Because I haven't heard an actual apology. I've heard excuses, demands, and threats, but no apology." Alyssa's face crumpled and she began to cry. Not the genuine tears of remorse, but the calculated sobbing she'd used to manipulate me since childhood. "Daddy, please. I'm sorry, okay? I'm really, really sorry. We need your help." "You're sorry you need my help," I clarified. "Not sorry for how you treated me." "I'm sorry for everything," she wailed. "Just please, we can't pay rent without you." Trevor grabbed her arm. "Alyssa, stop. You're making this worse." "Worse than what?" I asked. "Worse than being publicly mocked by my own family? Worse than having my son-in-law threaten to come to my house and force me to give you money?" "I never threatened you," Trevor said quickly. I pulled out my phone and played back his voicemail from 2 days ago. "Call me back tonight, or I'm coming over tomorrow morning." Trevor's face reddened. "That wasn't a threat. I just meant we needed to talk." "By forcing your way to my house when I'd made it clear I didn't want to speak with you?" By now, several neighbors had emerged from their houses. Mrs. Harrington was openly recording with her phone from her front porch. Mr. Rellan had brought his teenage son outside to watch. The family across the street was peering through their windows. "Dad, please," Alyssa begged, apparently oblivious to our growing audience. "We'll pay you back, I promise. Trevor's got a big commission coming, and I'm up for a promotion at work. We just need a little more time." "How much time?" I asked. "Because according to my records, you've been promising to pay me back for 5 years. The total is now $150,000. Eleanor gasped. "Frank, that can't be right." $150,000, I repeated, making sure my phone captured their shocked faces. $127,000 in direct payments, plus $26,000 per year in ongoing expenses. I have documentation of every transaction. Trevor's face had gone pale. That's not possible. The wedding alone was $30,000. Your car payments for 2 years are $8,160. Rent assistance totals $43,200. Should I continue?" "Stop," Alyssa whispered. "Just stop." "Stop what? Stop telling the truth? Stop documenting how my family treats me? Because that's exactly what I'm doing." I held up my phone, making sure they could see the recording light. "I'm documenting this conversation just like I documented your group chat messages, just like I documented every broken promise to pay me back, just like I documented Trevor's threats and demands." "You can't record us without permission," Trevor shouted. "Actually, I can. This is my property, and you're trespassing. I can absolutely record people who show up at my house demanding money after publicly humiliating me." Eleanor tried one more time to take control. "Frank, put the phone away. Let's go inside and work this out privately." "No," I said firmly. "You made this public when you laughed at me in the group chat. If you want to apologize, you can do it the same way you insulted me, in front of everyone." "This is insane," Trevor muttered, but his voice had lost its aggressive edge. He was finally beginning to understand that I held all the cards. "What's insane," I replied, "is 32 and 34-year-old adults throwing tantrums on their father's porch because they can't pay their own bills. What's insane is expecting someone to fund your lifestyle while you mock them for entertainment." Alyssa collapsed into sobs, finally understanding that her usual manipulation tactics weren't working. "What do you want from us?" "I want you to understand that respect isn't optional just because we're family. I want you to understand that my money isn't your birthright. And I want you to understand that actions have consequences." "We understand," she cried. "We get it. Just please help us." "Do you get it?" I asked, zooming in on her tear-streaked face with my phone. "Because 5 minutes ago, you were still calling your cruelty a prank. You're not sorry for how you treated me. You're sorry that it affected your bank account." Trevor made one last desperate attempt at intimidation. "Frank, if you don't help us, we're going to lose our apartment. Alyssa's credit will be ruined. Is that what you want?" "What I want," I said calmly, "is for my adult children to take responsibility for their own lives instead of expecting me to subsidize their poor choices." I stepped back and prepared to close the door. "When you're ready to have an adult conversation about respect and responsibility, you can call me. Until then, you're not welcome on my property." "Dad, wait!" Alyssa screamed, throwing herself against the screen door. "Please, we're sorry. We're really, really sorry." But I had already closed the door and turned the deadbolt. I walked to my living room window and watched as the three of them stood in my driveway, arguing among themselves while my neighbors continued to record their meltdown. Eleanor was trying to calm Alyssa down while Trevor paced frantically, probably calculating how many bills they couldn't pay. I ended my phone recording, 12 minutes of pure documentation, and opened TikTok. The caption wrote itself, "When your family treats you like an ATM and mocks you in the group chat, sometimes you have to show them what life looks like without the boring old man they pushed aside." I uploaded the video and set my phone aside. Within an hour, the video had 500 views. By evening, it was at 15,000. By the end of the week, it would reach 60,000 views and counting, with thousands of comments from viewers sharing their own stories of ungrateful family members and financial manipulation. But I didn't need to see the numbers to know I'd won. Through my living room window, I watched Alyssa, Trevor, and Eleanor finally drive away, their voices still raised in argument as they disappeared down my street. Mrs. Harrington gave me a thumbs up from her porch before heading inside. For the first time in years, my house was quiet on Christmas Day. And for the first time in years, that felt exactly right.